The Taliban cracked down on protests that erupted in at least 4 cities in Afghanistan on Thursday and rounded up opponents despite promises of amnesty, even as fearful workers stayed home and thousands of people continued a frenzied rush to leave the country. Even as the Taliban moved to assert control, hundreds of protesters took to the streets for a second day to rally against their rule, this time marching in Kabul, the capital, as well as other cities. Again, the Taliban met them with force, using gunfire and beatings to disperse crowds. And again, the actions of Taliban foot soldiers undermined the leadership's suggestions that, having taken power, they would moderate the brutality they have long been known for. The police officers who served the old government have melted away, and instead armed Taliban fighters are operating checkpoints and directing traffic, administering their notions of justice as they see fit, with little consistency from one to another. The Taliban were stepping up an intensive search for people who worked with US and NATO forces, particularly members of the former Afghan security services, according to witnesses and a security assessment prepared for the United Nations. Though the Taliban have said there would be no reprisals, there have been arrests, property seizures and scattered reports of reprisal killings. Kabul's international airport remained a scene of desperation as thousands struggled to get in and board flights out. Millions of other Afghans, including critical workers, particularly women, hid in their homes despite Taliban calls for them to return to work, fearing either retribution or the harsh repression of women that the militants instituted when they ruled from 1996 to 2001. 8 agencies said services like electricity, sanitation, water and healthcare could soon be affected. The Taliban seized control of city after city with remarkable speed once most US forces had withdrawn, brushed aside the demoralized and disorganized Afghan security forces, and swept into Kabul on Sunday. Now they are learning that while conquest may have been swift, governing a vibrant free-thinking society is not so easy. The anti-Taliban protests have been a remarkable display of defiance of a group that has a long history of controlling communities through fear and meeting dissent with lethal force. The protests also offered evidence that while tens of thousands are now seeking escape, some of those left behind would try for now, at least to have a voice in the country's direction, despite the growing crackdown. There were news reports of several people killed in the eastern city of Asadabad when Taliban fighters opened fire Thursday at a rally of people waving the flag of the deposed government, marking Afghanistan's annual celebration of gaining independence from Britain in 1919. It was not clear whether the victims had been shot or had died in a stampede. There were even demonstrators waving the flag in Kandahar, the southern city that is considered the birthplace of the Taliban. In the southeastern city of Khost, the group imposed a curfew, a day after demonstrations and clashes there. The protests on Thursday in Kabul included one near the presidential palace and another that drew about 200 people before the Taliban used force to break it up. The events, led primarily by young men and women, were a wholly new experience for Taliban insurgents who have spent the last 20 years mostly in the mountains and rural districts of Afghanistan and Pakistan.